Push, directed by David Charbonier and Justin Powell. They directed a little indie horror movie called The Djinn, like 3 years ago maybe, and we really liked that movie. It was a real surprise for us, kind of a cool little horror thriller, mostly a thriller, character-driven piece, but it was a lot of fun. And I know Eric is really excited for this movie, and I was just like, oh, I'm curious to see what this movie is. I don't know much of anything about it. It's called Push. Let's see. So it starts out in Barcelona in 93, but then quickly jumps forward a little bit from there. And Barcelona is just there to show us that she had a car wreck, and essentially her love, I think he's either her fiance or husband, I forget. The main character's love interest dies in a car wreck, and then you fast forward a little bit further, and she is now in, was it Michigan? Yeah, northern Michigan it says. And she is very pregnant, assuming by the person who's now dead. And you find out that she's basically got this house, this giant manor, like really giant manor, like a huge old gothic mansion that she's trying to sell as a real estate agent, which is her role. But like I said, she's very pregnant too. So the beginning, I don't know, 20 minutes or so is her wandering around this estate, getting it ready to show to people and to sell. And it's funny because it was like a Chekhov's gun thing where you see her going around and various things in this estate you are sure are going to come into play. There's this weird elevator that rises out of the floor, old-fashioned floor-to-floor elevator you have in one of these mansions. And that's going to come into play later, and it does. There's an old family crypt out back like you'd see in a Hammer movie. Once again, that's going to come into play, and it does. A lot of stuff like that, which is fine, very traditional kind of storytelling style. And one thing that did bother me a little bit, though, is throughout this movie, wherever she goes, she is constantly cradling her pregnant belly, like holding it. Just like we know she's pregnant. We don't have to be reminded, but constantly holding it. I don't know if it's just an acting choice or if there was a direction there that she, make sure they notice you're pregnant, something like that. But and I couldn't also help from basically the first moment we see she's pregnant, I'm like, oh, it's called Push. I guarantee at some point she's going to have to push, and she does. So all that stuff is pretty in your face. The basic concept is this. She only gets one client during the day at this giant manor, and she wants to sell this thing. She needs this commission because obviously this house, if anyone buys it, is going to cost, I don't know, $20 million, $10 million, I don't know, millions of dollars. So she'll get a pretty good commission, and she needs that. And this one client shows up, and he walks around the house, and he's creepy, and then he leaves. And then for the rest of the movie, she's terrorized by that guy. He's going to get in, he's going to get her, he's going to stalk her, he's going to freak her out, he's going to maybe try to kill her baby, who knows? All kinds of crazy stuff. Anyway, so it becomes a cat and mouse game, a really traditional thriller. When I say really traditional, I'm going to put a capital T on traditional. This movie feels very old-fashioned in its style, and that could be a plus or a minus. Now, on the plus side of things, it's fun sometimes to see this really traditional style of a thriller and suspense built up. Like I said before, you set up all the locations and you set up this very clear situation, and then you're just trying to see how it's going to play out and, you know, what this guy is going to do, and is she going to be able to make it out of there alive, and is she going to be able to get any help? It also doesn't hurt that if they made it in the 90s. This is another trope in a way now, placing movies pre-cell phone. So that way you have no reason for your main character to be able to quickly and easily call someone and say, I'm being terrorized in this isolated country estate. Can you please send the police? That being said, various other people do enter the story and possibly offer her help or assistance. And that kind of, I won't obviously spoil that here. So on the traditional side, like I said, it's not super violent. There are a few moments, but it doesn't have that feeling of a newer film where it could be really hardcore violence or really hardcore, like stylish editing and stuff. This is done under, like I said, very much more of a old-fashioned kind of approach to this kind of story. And I think for people who miss that, this might be great because this is going to really fill a void. This kind of movie just doesn't get made anymore. And for them, I think I could go straight to the rating really quick before I get into some other stuff, but I'll probably go 3-star banger on this because what the point of a 3-star banger is that whatever it does, it's doing that thing really well. Whereas someone else might vote it just outside in general and say, oh, this is only a 2-star movie or a whatever star movie, but they're not really rating it in its own kind of world. And in the world this is in, this kind of, I keep using the word traditional, so I use something else, but in this very kind of a well-worn style of kind of gothic suspense thriller sort of movie. In that world, this is a really well done version of that, and something you don't see a lot anymore. So I think it's a 3-star banger in that sense. And I enjoyed it enough. I enjoyed the movie. I wasn't super scared. I wasn't super grossed out, but I was still invested in the story, and it pulled me through and it kept moving, and I appreciated that. But as you probably also capture from the way I was describing some of the tropes and the, like I said, Chekhov's areas in this manner, I also wasn't super surprised by it. And there was a level of predictability and kind of familiarness to it that I think was also somewhat of a detriment. Now, my biggest weird reaction to this movie, and this is fully me, but I think it is good to bring up just because these kind of things happen. Sometimes our biases, whatever they are in our lives, enter our reactions to a movie. So we're in highly politicized times, so you can just tune this part out if you want, but I thought it was interesting. And you can't make a movie like this, like in a bubble or fully erased from the world that we live in. And even though it's a period piece and all, that would erase it somewhat from the world we live in, obviously. But I came to this, and my liberal spidey senses kept picking up things. And sometimes I get these kind of movies where I'm like, this feels like an Angel Studios movie, or this feels like something that's very coded to the right. And this movie has a weird, subtle edge to that I think could be seen, although it definitely could just be my liberal bias seeing it here. And I can discount it. I think that most likely the producers of this movie had no intention of what I'm going to say, but there was something weird about the basic concept of this, and that is, you've got this killer, this threatening killer guy, and he is of undetermined Latinx origin. Is he Mexican, Nicaragua? You don't know. But, and I didn't even mention that the actors in this. Natalie is the main woman. That's Alicia Sanz. And the client, the antagonist, is Raúl Castillo. And of undetermined, like I said, Latinx origin. And he's literally from an insane asylum. He's literally trying to kill and attack this woman. And at one point he yells through the door or the wall or whatever, and he's trying to get in or whatever. And I'm going to kill your baby. So he's trying to kill her unborn baby. And kind of see what I'm putting down here. Kill her unborn baby and invade her beautiful, palatial, rich, moneyed atmosphere, even though she is not personally that, but she's in that environment that he's trying to invade. Yeah, you kind of see what I'm getting at. Like I said, I don't think any of this is intended, and I really don't rate it based on that. If I did, I'd probably go really low. If I believe the filmmakers were really trying to do that kind of like messaging, I would definitely knock this way down. Like I said, 3-star banger. It's just interesting that it has all that messaging in there if you want it. And hopefully they didn't intend it. If they didn't intend it, they might want to think about, oh, wow, that's all in there. I guess it could be seen weird by somebody or seen as a message or a dog whistle for the side I don't want to give that to. Either way, I thought it was an interesting aspect of this movie that probably doesn't exist and is just in my brain. Whatever. If anyone else watches this, I'd be curious to see if you think I'm just being a nutso conspiracy theorist on this, which I don't tend to go into, but I just felt some weird vibes there. Okay, moving along.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. For more movie and television reviews and interviews, please subscribe to my Deepest Dream channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for your support. Take care.